I'm very excited about the whole process of making these first test products that I'm embarking on. One is a cereal honey wheat loaf, and the other one is a country loaf made into a giant centerpiece style, like a large round that is straight from Eastern Europe. It's a blend of wheat, whole wheat, rye, and nice base bread flour. Flour, water, salt, starter, simple, but really high quality, fresh milled flours in both. So now I'm about to do the milling process for both of these menu items. So I'm going to need to bring over the grains that I wish to mill today, and I'm just looking for which vessel I'm going to use to do so. I think Mesa took all the little wheelie racks that we have here. They're really convenient for getting things around, but I might be able to make this work. I think I'm just going to carry the bags today. So this is flour that's been prepped to be removed from here to go to Mesa. Part of how this whole place works is we prep the next day's worth of supplies. And so this is an outbound pallet ready to go of a mixture of flours. It's already time to get that second level of grains in here. We are already at the point that we're using the first level of storage that we have available to us in full. So I have a few varieties of grain that I've compiled onto one pallet because I don't have any other space for the individuals right now. This is the Rouge Bordeaux. It's a heritage wheat, meaning it hasn't been modified in a long time, not through any kind of cross hybridization process or any other. And it's not as high yielding as some of the modern wheats. So requires more space to grow it at volume for a farmer. It's not as popular, but at the same time, it's better for the soil. It has deeper root systems, as do most heritage grains. And it's super flavorful, like most heritage grains are. So that's why we like using them as bakers. It starts off a bit like a rocket ship. So now that the mill is fully powered on, I need to get it ready for milling the way that I want to. I want to make a whole wheat Rouge Bordeaux, so I'm going to close the sifter and open up the main whole wheat chute. At this point, I need to start the auger while bringing the two stones together. The auger is rotating here and pushing grains into the mill at a particular rate. We're starting off pretty nice and slow. And then I'm bringing this to where I know the Rouge Bordeaux mills nicely. So I'm smelling right now to make sure I don't have a bad smell coming from the mill, like two stones rubbing together too hard. And I'm notating exactly the level at which I'm milling. So this is the level that we've been milling this Rouge Bordeaux at, but the flour that I'm getting out of the mill right now is very fine. As I feel it, I don't feel any kind of grittiness, even though it's a whole wheat flour. And if you see, it's sticking and staying in the very small crevices in my skin. You know, the little wrinkles of your hand. It's fine enough to do that. So if it was too coarse, it wouldn't fill in all the small lines. And if I were to make any adjustments, then I could put the adjustments next to that. But I'm already very happy with this particular mill rate. I want to let this go now. I want to be mindful of it. I'm only milling 50 pounds right now, and it goes relatively quick, actually. This mill can mill about 250 pounds an hour. So that puts us at 1/5 of an hour, 12 minutes or so, by the time we should be getting close to the end. I'm also watching that mill because once the mill runs to the dry position, I've got two very carefully sharpened stones that are essentially polishing together, and that's not what I want. So I can't let the mill run dry in that position. I've got to lift the stones and separate them, which makes the last bit of the milling process the most sensitive to the equipment. Really need that mirror up there. So if we just put a mirror facing down into the chute that was visible from the other parts of the room, we could be working peacefully right now instead of wondering, is the mill gonna run dry? So the auger is going to dump the last of the wheat berries, and at that point I'm gonna need to turn the stones so that they're not quite touching. There it is. So now I've taken this back to a safe position, 0. I've now done my Rouge Bordeaux, but for the different breads that I'm building, I'm also building a white Sonora based bread. So I need some white Sonora flour. I also need some rye. I think I'm gonna start with the rye, let that go while I do some other things around the bakery. So to mill the rye, I need to shut this hatch. And then plan to go through the sifter box. We're gonna be milling it into this first bin primarily. And I'm actually going to mill into the same exact batch that I started yesterday, because I still have plenty of room in this bin. The sifter is pretty cool. I'll open this up briefly before I get it going. Basically it turns, these wheels turn, and there's different levels of screen. And so the screen flour then goes through, but the force of the mill has flour pushing from right to left. And so at the very end you get the middlings, or rather the outer layer, the bran. So the stuff here in this bin is significantly more rough. It's gritty, actually. And we use this to dust our boards for baking because it's very moisture absorbent. It's not great to open that up while the mill's on, because it does kick up a lot of flour when you open up that sifter box. So I've gotten the sifter box going. What I now need to do is load the hopper with the rye and then go from there. So while I have access to a beautiful local rye called Gazelle rye, and I have some here on hand, I've got to mill these other organic berries that I've had for a while. As long as I've been wanting to freshly mill and make bread with it, it's been like the better part of a year. So I got to use these first for my tests. I forgot to shut the auger off, so I started milling already. Now most of what I'm trying to mill is going to come out here, but it's going to also take a moment for the sifter to do its work. My mill timer is up. Time to lift the stones away from one another. And now I've milled all of the sifted rye that I'm gonna mill. The majority of it is coming through here, and it's still coming because the sifter has a delayed effect. So while I've done all the flour I'm gonna do today. I've done Rouge Bordeaux, I got some white Sonora milled, I've got the rye, and so now I'm gonna keep the sifter going for a little while so it can finish its job. But I can shut off the auger, which will prevent the empty grain chute from dispensing any more. and I can shut off the actual mill. Let that come to a stop. I'm gonna allow the dust to settle, and then I'm gonna open up these bins and show everybody the difference between a sifted flour and how it goes through these various screens. This brush is angled, and so the grains are meant to travel through these screens. And what comes out of the first chute is fine flour. Same with the second chute, which just gets less and also a slightly lesser grade, rougher fine flour. The third chute is a medium screen, so only larger particles will go through it. And then the fourth chute has no screen. So out the fourth chute come the roughest, and out the first chute come the finest. So in this case, this is rye that I milled, and I milled it sifted. This is very powdery and light, very airy, extremely soft. There's no grit to it whatsoever. But as I pull the second drawer out, it's still fine to the touch. I haven't actually done anything with this bin. I've been collecting whatever comes through it right now. So it's actually a mix of slightly fine Rouge Bordeaux and slightly fine rye. So it's not gonna be a true just rye or representation. Here, you have coarser stuff. So this stuff looks more sandy in nature. It's still milled, and so if I wanted to vary the degree of whole wheat or whole rye in this case, I could put some of this in with that as a mixture. And then the final bin has the middlings, which are very rough and large particles. This is mostly the outer layer of the grain that's being milled through on that side. So about 85% of what we mill through the sifter goes into that first hopper. This stuff that's here has been accumulating from several milling events over the last few days. Eventually, I won't do it this way. I will let each grain mill independently, but at larger scales, and then I might be able to make different grades of flour, maybe even share some of that flour with the world. So look out for proof flour in the future.